When attempts are made to ridicule Gemini, the universe itself seems to lean closer, for ridicule is never the end of their story but the spark of a new chapter. Gemini belongs to Mercury, the swift-footed messenger of the gods, whose laughter and wit cut deeper than any weapon, whose words pierce through veils of ignorance and expose the truth hidden behind false laughter. To mock Gemini is to underestimate the force of duality, the ability to shift from lightheartedness to a storm of brilliance in an instant, to dance between vulnerability and power until the aggressor finds themselves tangled in their own scorn. Those who ridicule forget that Gemini's mind is a mirror that never breaks. It reflects every attempt at belittlement back with clarity, and even if shards are scattered, they are sharp and gleam with a radiance that wounds arrogance. In moments when Gemini is laughed at, the celestial twins awaken their most formidable gift, adaptability. What was meant as humiliation becomes a canvas for transformation, a chance to mold the insult into art, to craft words sharper than blades, to turn wounds into wings. Ridicule cannot bind one who thrives in the currents of change, for Gemini shifts direction like the wind, carrying both the whispers of rebellion and the songs of triumph. There is an irony to mocking Gemini, for laughter has always been their ally. They understand the power of humor. They wield it as a shield and as a sword. When others attempt to turn it against them, they merely redirect it, transmuting cruelty into resilience. The cosmos gifted Gemini the capacity to hold contradictions without collapsing, to embody the trickster and the sage, the dreamer and the realist, the fighter and the poet. No ridicule can strip away that dual flame, for it is infinite, endlessly recreating itself from the ashes of misunderstanding. History echoes with figures born under the sign who turned ridicule into reverence. They were underestimated, mocked, and dismissed, yet they rose, not despite laughter but through it, for ridicule revealed their hidden strength. Their enemies could never predict which twin they would face, the one who disarms with charm, or the one who dismantles with unrelenting truth. That unpredictability is Gemini's armor, for no insult can land when the target is already moving between dimensions of thought and expression. The ridicule of Gemini reveals more about the ridiculer than the ridiculed. It exposes fear of the unknown, discomfort with brilliance, envy of a spirit that cannot be pinned down. Gemini absorbs it, studies it, and uses it as raw material for their ascent. The very mockery intended to diminish them becomes the ladder by which they climb higher. This is the paradox that the cosmos loves, for Gemini thrives where others falter, finding freedom in what was meant to confine. And so, when the world laughs at Gemini, the stars do not weep. They shine brighter, for they know that Gemini will always rise from ridicule with sharper words, deeper wisdom, and a renewed sense of purpose. What was meant to humiliate becomes the wind at their back, propelling them toward realms that mockery can never reach. For Gemini is not defined by the voices that try to belittle them, but by the eternal conversation they hold with the universe itself, a dialogue that transforms shadows into light and laughter into power. Ridicule directed at Gemini awakens an archetypal force woven into the very essence of their sign. Unlike others who may crumble under mockery, Gemini holds within them the eternal dance of opposites, and this duality ensures that no single arrow of scorn can pierce their whole being. If one aspect of their nature is attacked, another rises to shield it. If one side is dismissed, the other emerges with renewed brilliance. This constant interplay between the twins grants Gemini the extraordinary ability to disarm the weight of ridicule, transforming it into a spark of movement and reinvention. Mercury, their guiding planet, blesses them with speed of thought and sharpness of tongue. Ridicule that might silence another becomes a stage for Gemini's eloquence. They can dismantle cruelty with a sentence, twist a jeer into a revelation, and elevate a moment of mockery into a spectacle of resilience. Words, their eternal companions, are never merely sounds to them. They are lightning bolts that illuminate and shatter the false power of derision. Even when Gemini chooses silence in the face of ridicule, that silence is never weakness. It is the pause before thunder, the quiet before the release of a storm. Beneath the surface, ridicule serves as an alchemical fire for Gemini's restless spirit. Every attempt to belittle them is transmuted into curiosity. They do not merely absorb the insult, they dissect it, study its hidden motives, and uncover the insecurity lurking within the one who dared to mock them. This capacity to see through the layers of intent makes ridicule powerless in the long run, for Gemini does not only respond. They understand, and with understanding comes mastery. The mythology of the twins carries the essence of immortality, for one twin descends into shadow while the other remains in light, ensuring they can never be wholly destroyed. Ridicule echoes this myth, for while one aspect of Gemini may momentarily feel the sting of laughter, the other stands unshaken, ready to restore balance. Their resilience is not linear but cyclical, rising and falling, yet always returning stronger, as if the very act of being underestimated fuels their divine rhythm. In the grand tapestry of the zodiac, ridicule aimed at Gemini serves a hidden cosmic purpose. It forces them to claim their voice, to refine their wit, and to discover dimensions of themselves that might have remained dormant without provocation. Every attempt to diminish them calls forth greater power, as though the stars themselves conspire to ensure Gemini never forgets the immensity of their potential. This is why mockery, rather than weakening them, often precedes their most dazzling displays of brilliance. Those who ridicule Gemini rarely grasp that they are confronting a sign born of the air element, intangible and impossible to bind. To laugh at Gemini is to attempt to cage the wind, but the wind only slips through, rushing past, carrying seeds of change to distant lands. Air cannot be mocked into submission. It carries the whispers of destiny, the voices of countless possibilities, and the promise of transformation. Gemini embodies that current, ever-shifting, never fixed, beyond the reach of ridicule's chains. What emerges from these trials is a being whose spirit cannot be broken. Ridicule does not silence Gemini. It teaches them new tones of expression. It does not confine them. It challenges them to explore new horizons of thought and creativity. It does not define them. It reveals the endless capacity of their soul to rise above limitation. In this way, Gemini becomes a living reminder that mockery is only noise against the infinite dialogue they maintain with the cosmos, a fleeting echo drowned by the eternal symphony of their ever-expanding voice. When ridicule attempts to reduce Gemini, it forgets that this sign is the embodiment of multiplicity, and that no single attempt at belittlement can capture the entirety of their essence. The dual current of their nature ensures that they are always more than what is perceived, more than what is attacked, and more than what is dismissed. Their spirit is not fixed in one identity but woven through 1,000 possibilities, and mockery can only ever strike a fragment, never the whole. This is why Gemini always rises from ridicule with renewed strength, for they are infinite in the ways they can rebuild themselves. Their air element carries them beyond the narrow confines of judgment. Air is omnipresent. It moves through every crevice. It expands where it is least expected, and it cannot be bound by form or laughter. Ridicule is heavy and coarse, but Gemini is light and fluid, flowing around it, transforming it into momentum rather than obstruction. To attempt to ridicule Gemini is to throw a stone at the wind. It may cut briefly, but the wind endures, undiminished, already carrying the stone's weight into something greater. Mercury, the planet that governs Gemini, symbolizes communication, travel, and the eternal exchange between realms. Through this influence, Gemini gains the gift of movement not only in body but in mind and spirit. Ridicule, therefore, cannot anchor them. When one path is blocked by scorn, Mercury whispers of another road, another expression, another horizon waiting to be claimed. This planetary force gives Gemini an almost prophetic resilience, a sense that even in the moment of being laughed at, they are already a step ahead, already shaping the ridicule into something that will later astonish those who doubted them. There is also an inner fire within Gemini often overlooked. Beneath their reputation for adaptability and lightness lies a fierce determination to prove that no attempt to diminish them can succeed. Their laughter, often mistaken for carelessness, hides the strength of a soul that refuses to bow to shame. Ridicule becomes the forge in which their hidden courage is tempered, and when they emerge from it, they carry an unshakable confidence born not of praise but of having survived mockery and turned it into power. The myth of the twins is not only about duality but about transcendence. One twin suffers, the other uplifts. One faces mortality, the other ensures immortality. Ridicule plays into this cosmic pattern, for while one part of Gemini may feel the sting of being underestimated, another part rises beyond it, immortalizing their strength through the very act of surviving. In this, Gemini teaches that to be ridiculed is not to be diminished but to be offered a chance to awaken the other half of the soul, the one that refuses to break. In the celestial order, Gemini occupies the space of the bridge, the one who connects ideas, people, and worlds. Mockery is often rooted in misunderstanding, in fear of what is different or too quick to grasp. Yet Gemini, being the eternal bridge, thrives in misunderstanding, for it offers them another chance to connect, to illuminate, to reveal what others cannot yet see. In this role, ridicule becomes a cosmic test of their mission: to keep moving, to keep weaving, to keep carrying light across shadows. Ultimately, ridicule is powerless against the timeless truth that Gemini is not a single note but a symphony. Laughter at their expense fades quickly, while their voice continues to echo across realms. The stars designed Gemini not to be conquered by shallow judgments but to rise above them, to show that the mind, the spirit, and the soul cannot be caged by scorn. The attempt to ridicule only amplifies their story, marking the beginning of yet another transformation where Gemini ascends, brighter, freer, and unstoppable. Ridicule, when aimed at Gemini, strikes not only at the individual but at a cosmic force that has always existed to remind humanity of the power of multiplicity, renewal, and intellect. The essence of Gemini is woven into the very fabric of the zodiac as a sign that carries divine curiosity and an eternal hunger for knowledge. To laugh at Gemini is to misunderstand their role in the greater astrological design, for they are not meant to be confined within one mask, one truth, or one identity. They are meant to embody movement, paradox, and transformation, and ridicule cannot shatter what was never meant to be rigid in the first place. The mercurial spirit of Gemini transforms humiliation into dialogue with destiny. Their dual nature allows them to stand both inside and outside of the storm at once, experiencing the sting of derision while simultaneously rising above it with an almost detached clarity. This dual vantage point is not weakness but strength, for while others may drown in ridicule, Gemini can both endure and observe, turning the moment into knowledge and knowledge into power. The very act of being mocked becomes another layer of their education in the endless school of existence, feeding their wit and sharpening their insight until they emerge stronger and more eloquent than before. The cosmos grants Gemini a rhythm unlike any other sign, a constant motion that mirrors the orbits of celestial bodies. Ridicule may attempt to pin them down, to define them by scorn, but Gemini is always already moving on, carrying pieces of experience into the next phase of their evolution. They cannot be trapped by the laughter of others, for their destiny is tied to the eternal wind, which never lingers in one place, never bows to one voice. Every mocking word is scattered like dust by their movement, while their spirit continues to expand across horizons unseen. There is also a sacred resilience in their laughter. What others mistake for frivolity is often a shield forged by the stars themselves, protecting their inner sanctum. When they laugh in the face of ridicule, it is not because they are wounded but because they understand that ridicule loses its power when it cannot provoke despair. Their humor disarms cruelty, their quick mind exposes the absurdity of scorn, and their refusal to take mockery as truth becomes an act of cosmic defiance. They reveal to the universe that no voice of belittlement can dictate the worth of a soul aligned with Mercury's brilliance. Gemini's myth carries the theme of sacrifice and redemption, for in the story of the twins, one descends into mortality so the other may rise to immortality. This myth echoes whenever Gemini is ridiculed. The insult, the jeer, the mocking laughter may wound the mortal part of their being, but another part, the immortal twin, takes that pain and ascends with it, ensuring that Gemini is never broken in entirety. They are always in dialogue with themselves, always carrying both the wound and the healing, always rising even when part of them has fallen. This mythic pattern makes them unconquerable, for they are never fully at the mercy of ridicule. From a higher perspective, ridicule directed at Gemini serves as a trial of initiation. The universe knows that the voice of Gemini carries the potential to inspire, to provoke thought, to weave connections that can alter the course of destiny. Such power cannot grow without challenge, and ridicule becomes the crucible in which their voice is tested. By standing against mockery, Gemini proves that their words are not fragile echoes but living forces capable of surviving doubt, dismissal, and disdain. Each trial strengthens their role as the messenger of the zodiac, destined to carry wisdom across shadows and misunderstanding. The legacy of Gemini is not silence, but expression. Ridicule may try to suppress that expression, yet it only ensures that their voice becomes sharper, clearer, more undeniable. Just as the wind cannot be stopped by laughter, Gemini cannot be diminished by mockery. Instead, they become an eternal reminder that truth, wit, and adaptability always outlast the fleeting sound of scorn. Their journey through ridicule is not a fall from grace but an ascension into greater mastery. For the stars themselves wove into their nature the ability to rise each time they are underestimated, brighter than before, carrying the unbroken promise of resilience that no ridicule can ever extinguish. Ridicule directed at Gemini often fails to recognize the cosmic dimension of their purpose, for this sign was never meant to be ordinary. They are a reflection of the sky's shifting light, a living embodiment of paradox, and paradox cannot be humiliated into silence. The very act of attempting to belittle them only reveals how threatening their versatility can be to those who fear what they cannot control. Gemini thrives in the spaces others dismiss, collecting fragments of experience and weaving them into something greater, and so ridicule becomes another fragment, another thread in the ever-expanding tapestry of their identity. The fluidity of their being ensures that no insult can take root permanently. Just as the wind disperses clouds and reshapes the air, Gemini disperses the weight of mockery, refusing to let it define them. Their essence is movement, and movement cannot be bound by static judgments. In the cosmic order, Gemini exists to keep life from stagnating, to stir minds into motion, to break apart illusions of certainty. Ridicule tries to freeze them in a caricature, but they are never still long enough for mockery to hold power. By the time laughter is aimed at them, they are already transforming into something new, proving that ridicule cannot imprison what is endlessly evolving. Mercury, their ruling planet, gives them mastery over contradiction. This grants Gemini a hidden resilience, the ability to inhabit both vulnerability and power at once. When they are ridiculed, they can feel the sting deeply while simultaneously rising above it, watching it dissolve through the clarity of their intellect. Their awareness of dual realities means they are never fully broken, for even in pain they carry within them the seed of triumph. This mercurial gift ensures that ridicule becomes not an end but a bridge, leading them toward a higher expression of themselves that might never have awakened without the test of mockery. There is a quiet ferocity in the way Gemini absorbs insult. What appears as casual dismissal or playful laughter from them often hides a deeper alchemy. They take the sting of being underestimated and turn it into fuel, into restless energy that propels them further than before. Those who mock them inadvertently feed their drive to prove that no jeer can overshadow brilliance. In this sense, ridicule becomes an unwitting ally, a shadow force that strengthens their journey rather than derails it. The universe, in its wisdom, allows Gemini to encounter such trials so that their adaptability never weakens, so that they remain forever aligned with the ever-changing nature of truth. Astrologically, Gemini carries the responsibility of communication, of carrying messages across divides, of ensuring that knowledge is not trapped in silence. Ridicule often arises from misunderstanding, from the fear of voices that speak too quickly or too brightly. Yet Gemini was designed for precisely this, to face misunderstanding and transmute it into connection. They become stronger each time their words are dismissed, because they learn how to refine their expression until even those who mocked cannot ignore the clarity of their voice. Ridicule therefore plays into their destiny, shaping them into sharper messengers of cosmic truth. The mythic symbolism of the twins holds another secret strength. One represents mortality, the other immortality, and together they embody the refusal to accept limitation. When Gemini is ridiculed, it is the mortal side that feels the blow, but the immortal side endures untouched, carrying the promise of rebirth. This dual existence means that they cannot be undone by scorn. For every insult aimed at them, one twin absorbs the wound while the other rises higher, ensuring that they are never wholly defeated. This is why ridicule fails against them. It only activates the eternal cycle of fall and rise that defines their spirit. Their journey through ridicule is not meant to be a struggle without meaning but a cosmic affirmation of their unbreakable essence. In the laughter of others, they hear not condemnation but the call to rise again, to embody more fully the messenger of light and movement that the stars created them to be. The voice of Gemini cannot be silenced by mockery because it does not belong solely to them. It belongs to the wind, to Mercury, to the eternal dialogue between the heavens and humanity. Each time ridicule falls upon them, it becomes another test of endurance that they pass not with bitterness, but with transformation. What remains after these trials is a figure who cannot be diminished, a soul that has learned to dance with both shadow and light. Gemini becomes proof that no external voice can erase the eternal conversation they hold with the cosmos. Ridicule, no matter how sharp, dissolves into nothing against the boundless adaptability of their being. They rise beyond the laughter of others, carrying within them the immortal flame of curiosity, intelligence, and resilience, a flame that was placed in their soul by the stars themselves to remind the world that mockery fades, but brilliance endures. Ridicule, when it touches Gemini, often underestimates the secret strength hidden within the very architecture of their soul. This sign is a living embodiment of motion, an eternal current that cannot be chained to the narrow judgments of others. Attempts to mock or belittle them fail to see that Gemini is not fixed to one form, one face, or one voice. They are the sign of transformation, of multiplicity, of constant renewal, and in their endless capacity to reinvent themselves, they cannot be reduced to a single moment of scorn. What seems like a wound to an outside observer becomes to Gemini a doorway, an opening through which they discover a new side of their own power. The cosmic rhythm that governs Gemini is one of eternal dialogue. Every word aimed at them, even words meant to humiliate, becomes a part of that greater conversation. They are ruled by Mercury, the planet of intellect, speech, and connection. And this influence ensures that their spirit knows how to absorb, reinterpret, and transmute even the sharpest insult. Mockery becomes another language for them to master, another signal to decode, another fragment of knowledge to weave into their growing mosaic of wisdom. Because of this, ridicule never remains a wound for long. It becomes material for transformation, fuel for their inner fire, and inspiration for their next flight forward. The duality of the twins gives them a resilience that few can rival. Where one aspect of their being may feel the sting of derision, the other carries them upward, untouched by earthly judgment. This internal partnership ensures that Gemini is never fully broken. Ridicule cannot extinguish them because part of them always remains out of reach, hidden in the light of immortality, waiting to rise when needed. This cycle of fall and rebirth is written into their very nature, mirroring the eternal dance of stars that vanish with the dawn only to shine again when darkness falls. To laugh at Gemini is to forget that no shadow can hold back a soul designed to rise endlessly from its own ashes. There is also a deeper truth hidden in their relationship with mockery. It sharpens their gifts. Gemini is born with the ability to wield words like lightning, to shape ideas with the swiftness of the wind. When faced with ridicule, they are challenged to refine these gifts, to become even more agile, more eloquent, more precise. Each insult tests the edges of their wit, forging them into sharper instruments of truth. In this way, ridicule does not diminish their brilliance. It polishes it, preparing them to stand as voices that cannot be silenced, carriers of truths that cut through the fog of misunderstanding. The mythic energy of Gemini is that of the bridge, the messenger, the eternal traveler between realms. Ridicule often arises when others cannot follow, when minds slower to grasp or hearts less open to paradox feel threatened by the speed and fluidity of Gemini's spirit. Yet this resistance only highlights their role in the zodiac, to challenge stagnation, to awaken what has been dulled, to remind others that change is not a threat but a path to growth. When mocked for their multiplicity, Gemini reveals that multiplicity is not confusion but power, not weakness but infinity. They remind the world that to be many things at once is to be closer to the fullness of existence itself. Beyond the surface, ridicule becomes part of the mythic journey of Gemini's soul. It is the trial by which they prove to themselves and to the universe that they cannot be reduced to the shallow judgments of others. Each jeer becomes a test of resilience, and with each trial, their adaptability deepens, their spirit strengthens, their light shines brighter. This is not a sign that bows to humiliation. This is a sign that uses humiliation as a stepping stone, leaping higher each time someone tries to drag them down. The cosmic truth within Gemini is that nothing external has the power to define them, for their essence is too vast, too fluid, too infinite to be caged. In the end, ridicule directed at Gemini becomes a hollow sound, fading quickly against the eternal dialogue they hold with the cosmos. The stars gave them a mind that moves like lightning, a spirit that flows like air, and a heart that can transform wounds into wisdom. Mockery cannot destroy what was born to adapt endlessly, to rise ceaselessly, to shine despite the shadows cast upon it. Gemini remains, as always, the eternal messenger, the twin flame of mortality and immortality, the spirit of resilience that proves no laughter, no insult, no attempt at belittlement can silence the brilliance that was written for them in the stars. Ridicule directed at Gemini carries within it a paradox that reveals more about the nature of the cosmos than it does about the sign itself. To mock what cannot be contained is to misunderstand the very essence of creation. Gemini is an echo of the eternal winds that sweep across the universe, the restless current that carries voices, knowledge, and dreams from one realm to another. No laughter or jeer can confine that current. When others attempt to ridicule Gemini, they are really trying to cage the wind, and the wind, by its very nature, cannot be trapped. It slips through every attempt, reshaping itself, returning with new force, and reminding the world that freedom is the essence of power. The gift of Gemini lies not only in their adaptability but also in their relationship with time. They live in perpetual motion between past, present, and future, weaving together lessons and possibilities. When ridicule arises, it may sting in the present moment, but Gemini already sees beyond it. Their mercurial mind has already projected them into the future, where the mockery will have dissolved into nothingness, while their own growth continues to flourish. This ability to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions of experience ensures that they are never bound to the weight of temporary judgments. Ridicule is fleeting, but Gemini is eternal in their movement. There is also an unspoken courage in Gemini's journey that ridicule cannot erase. While many signs find comfort in stability and predictability, Gemini ventures into uncertainty, embracing change and duality as natural states of being. This willingness to exist in flux exposes them to misunderstanding and mockery, for humanity often fears what it cannot define. Yet that very ridicule becomes a badge of honor, for it means they are fulfilling their cosmic role of challenging perceptions, pushing boundaries, and awakening the stagnant. They embody the truth that ridicule is not a sign of failure but evidence that their presence disrupts comfort zones and forces growth. At a deeper level, Gemini carries the archetype of the eternal storyteller. They are the voice that transforms experience into narrative, the interpreter of signs, the weaver of symbols. Ridicule, rather than silencing them, only provides more material for their story. They take the laughter of others and reshape it into tales of resilience, irony, and transcendence, reminding the world that even mockery can become a stepping stone toward wisdom. Through this gift, Gemini not only survives ridicule but transforms it into a mirror that reflects the limitations of those who mocked and the boundlessness of their own spirit. The myth of Castor and Pollux speaks to the immortality of connection, to the refusal to be severed by fate. This myth runs like fire through Gemini's soul. When ridicule attempts to divide them from their worth, from their light, or from their place in the world, that mythic bond pulls them back into wholeness. One twin may falter under the weight of scorn, but the other lifts them back to the stars, refusing to allow the fall to be final. This inner partnership means that ridicule can never be absolute. It may touch the surface, but it can never sever the eternal thread that ties Gemini to resilience and transcendence. Astrologically, Gemini represents the threshold, the liminal space between silence and voice, shadow and light, ignorance and knowledge. To ridicule Gemini is to attempt to close that threshold, to silence the messenger, to deny the possibility of transformation. Yet thresholds cannot be locked. Gemini's essence is to stand in those in-between places and to prove that transition itself is sacred. Their existence is a reminder that what is mocked today may become wisdom tomorrow, that what is dismissed in laughter may one day reshape destiny. This power to turn ridicule into revelation is their hidden triumph. Ultimately, ridicule fails because Gemini's spirit is not bound by the need for approval. Their essence comes from the stars, from Mercury's eternal flight, from the breath of the universe itself. They are sustained not by applause or recognition but by the ceaseless drive to move, to learn, to transform. The laughter of others may echo briefly, but Gemini's voice is carried by the wind across time and space, far beyond the reach of mockery. Their journey is not to be diminished by shadows, but to remind the world that the true measure of strength is the ability to rise, again and again, brighter each time, until ridicule itself becomes nothing more than a fading memory against the brilliance of their immortal flame. Ridicule aimed at Gemini often overlooks the profound spiritual architecture that defines this sign. At their core, Geminis are shaped by the principle of multiplicity, and multiplicity by its nature resists simplification. The attempt to reduce them through laughter or mockery is futile because what ridicule attacks is only a fraction of their infinite possibilities. They are never one thing at one time. They are many things, many voices, many paths, all coexisting in a single being. This vastness makes them immune to true diminishment. For every part of them that mockery touches, there are countless other parts that remain untouched, vibrant, and ready to rise. The mercurial essence that governs Gemini does not simply grant quickness of thought or speech. It grants a sacred agility of spirit. When insulted or ridiculed, Gemini can leap between emotional states with a grace that confounds those who expect them to remain wounded. One moment they may absorb the sting, and in the next, they are already shaping it into something new. A sharper response, a wiser reflection, a renewed vision of themselves. This fluidity is their protection. Fixed energies can be broken, but the energy of air cannot be shattered. It only shifts, expands, and returns in another form. Their dual nature also provides an internal sanctuary. While one side of Gemini might feel the impact of scorn, the other remains strong, steady, and unshaken. This duality ensures that they can never be wholly defeated, for the part of them that falters is always balanced by the part of them that endures. In this way, ridicule becomes not an ending but a dialogue between the two halves of their soul, a reminder that vulnerability and resilience coexist within them as eternal companions. What others perceive as inconsistency is in fact their greatest weapon against mockery. The ability to be more than one thing, to never collapse into a single narrative forced upon them by others. There is a cosmic irony in the ridicule of Gemini, for this sign is the messenger of the zodiac, designed to carry truths that disrupt, challenge, and awaken. The very qualities that invite mockery, curiosity, wit, versatility, unpredictability, are the same qualities that make them agents of transformation. History's most revolutionary voices were often ridiculed in their time, dismissed as chaotic or insincere, only to be recognized later as bearers of vision. Gemini embodies this archetype. Their path ensures that misunderstanding and laughter are woven into their destiny, not as shackles but as fires that temper their brilliance. The laughter directed at Gemini fades quickly because it lacks the endurance of their spirit. Ridicule is momentary, but Gemini's adaptability is infinite. They know how to ride the currents of change, how to let the winds of life carry them beyond the reach of those who tried to hold them down. Their gift is not only survival but transformation, turning the mockery itself into proof of their indestructibility. The more they are doubted, the more they rise. The more they are laughed at, the more they sharpen their voice. They are sustained not by external validation but by the endless curiosity that propels them forward, by the ceaseless movement of Mercury's influence. Ridicule also awakens in Gemini an unexpected depth. Beneath their lightness, beneath their quick shifts and laughter, lies a reservoir of quiet strength. When others mock, they are often disarmed by the brightness of Gemini's response, never realizing that beneath it exists an unwavering core of endurance. This strength is not loud or forceful. It is the kind of strength that grows silently with every challenge, the kind of strength that endures storms not by resisting but by flowing with them until the storm passes. It is the strength of air itself, invisible but unstoppable, carrying the seeds of renewal across the world. In the grand design of the zodiac, Gemini is not placed at the threshold of summer by accident. Their season reflects their nature, a time of transition, of quickening, of restless movement that stirs life into full expression. To ridicule Gemini is to ridicule transition itself, the very force that ensures growth and progress. Yet transition is inevitable, and so is Gemini's rise. They symbolize the truth that nothing remains stagnant, that laughter fades, that mockery dissolves, but that the spirit which adapts will always endure. What emerges from ridicule, then, is not defeat but a kind of cosmic affirmation. Each attempt to belittle Gemini becomes another demonstration of their unbreakable essence. Their laughter becomes defiance. Their words become weapons. Their silence becomes thunder waiting to break. The stars themselves testify to this truth. No matter how many times the twins are misunderstood, underestimated, or ridiculed, they will always return, brighter, freer, and more untouchable, carrying within them the eternal flame of adaptability and the immortal voice of Mercury that no mockery can ever silence. Ridicule, when it tries to wound Gemini, reveals something deeper about the cosmic balance of light and shadow. The sign of the twins carries within it the eternal truth that identity is never singular, never fixed, but a constellation of shifting lights that form a greater whole. To laugh at Gemini is to laugh at movement itself, to mock the very principle of change and renewal that sustains the universe. Such attempts always fall short, because Gemini's essence is not bound to the present moment. It stretches across dimensions of time and thought, absorbing scorn as easily as it absorbs knowledge, and transmuting both into strength. The influence of Mercury ensures that no word directed at Gemini is ever final. Words meant to humiliate are taken apart, analyzed, reframed, and reimagined until they no longer wound but illuminate. This ability to unravel the weight of language is part of Gemini's sacred inheritance, for they are not only speakers but interpreters, alchemists of communication who know how to bend sound into meaning. Ridicule may intend to silence, yet it only becomes another note in the symphony they are destined to create, another spark that fuels the fire of their ceaseless dialogue with the cosmos. Gemini carries within them a hidden discipline that is often overlooked. Behind their laughter and quicksilver adaptability lies a profound commitment to survival through reinvention. When mocked, they do not merely escape, they evolve. Each time they are underestimated, they shed a layer of what no longer serves them and emerge sharper, lighter, and more untouchable. This quiet metamorphosis is their greatest triumph, for ridicule becomes not a prison but a catalyst that speeds their transformation. The more the world tries to confine them in a single definition, the more fiercely they break free, proving that freedom is the core of their being. The myth of the twins teaches that duality is not a flaw but a source of immortality. One twin descends, the other ascends, and together they ensure continuity beyond mortality itself. In this myth, ridicule plays its role as the force that attempts to separate, to divide, to weaken. Yet every attempt only reaffirms the bond between the two halves, the mortal and the immortal, the shadow and the light. Gemini is never fully struck down because half of their essence always remains untouched, ready to rise, ready to guide the fallen part back into wholeness. This eternal cycle of descent and ascent ensures that mockery cannot claim victory over them. In the broader design of the zodiac, Gemini occupies the place of the awakener, the one who disrupts silence with voice, who disturbs stagnation with movement, who brings contrast to what would otherwise remain hidden. Ridicule, in this light, is not a punishment but a cosmic test, a reminder that awakening is often met with resistance. Yet Gemini was made for resistance. Their soul thrives in the clash of contradictions. Their spirit sharpens against the friction of misunderstanding. Every laugh at their expense becomes a confirmation that they are stirring the still waters of complacency, fulfilling their role as heralds of change. Ridicule also reveals the extraordinary courage that pulses beneath Gemini's surface. It takes strength to remain open, curious, and vulnerable in a world that often tries to define or dismiss. While others protect themselves with walls, Gemini moves freely, knowing they may be misunderstood, knowing they may be mocked, yet choosing expression over silence. This willingness to expose themselves to ridicule is not weakness but cosmic bravery, for it proves that their mission to carry messages and ideas outweighs the fear of rejection. They become a symbol of resilience not because they never face laughter but because they continue to shine in spite of it. Ultimately, ridicule becomes part of Gemini's legacy. It cannot erase them, it cannot silence them, it cannot bind them, because their destiny is to remind the world that the spirit of air cannot be held by chains of judgment. They are the breath that returns after silence, the voice that speaks after being dismissed, the movement that continues after resistance. Ridicule is temporary, but Gemini's brilliance is eternal, carried on the wings of Mercury, written into the stars as a promise that no laughter or mockery can extinguish the infinite adaptability and unbreakable light of their soul. Ridicule often underestimates the sacred connection Gemini has with paradox. What others perceive as inconsistency or contradiction is in truth the heartbeat of their cosmic role. They embody the dance between dualities, showing the world that existence is not a straight line but a spectrum of possibilities. When laughter attempts to reduce them to confusion or fickleness, it forgets that the very essence of creation thrives on contradiction. Night needs day, silence needs sound, shadow needs light, and in the same way, Gemini needs opposition to reveal the full strength of their truth. What mockery labels as weakness is in reality a mirror of the universe's endless cycles, and in aligning with those cycles Gemini rises untouchable. The stars imbued them with a mercurial nature so they could slip through barriers others find immovable. When ridicule comes, it tries to fix them into a caricature, a single image meant to limit and define. But Gemini is not an image, they are movement, they are flight, they are transition. No ridicule can capture them because they are never still long enough to be caged. They glide above the noise, reshaping themselves in the very moment they are judged. To mock them is to aim at the shadow of the wind. The strike lands on emptiness, while Gemini has already moved forward, lighter, freer, and unconquered. Their gift lies not only in words but in perception. Gemini has the ability to see patterns hidden from others, to notice where thought and intention diverge, to recognize the fractures beneath the mask of those who ridicule. This perception transforms mockery into revelation. They recognize in laughter the insecurity of the one who laughs, the fear that hides beneath the attempt to diminish, and in that recognition, Gemini takes back the power that ridicule sought to steal. Instead of being undone, they gain wisdom, and each wound becomes a new map, guiding them toward even greater clarity. There is also within Gemini a secret fire that ridicule cannot extinguish. Though they are of the element of air, the motion of their spirit generates sparks that ignite vision and creativity. What ridicule intends as harm becomes fuel for this fire, propelling them toward discoveries and achievements that silence the mockery in echoes of awe. The laughter of others becomes an unwitting prophecy of Gemini's rise, for history has shown that the voices most ridiculed are often those destined to bring transformation. In Gemini, this truth is alive. Their very duality equips them to walk through misunderstanding without losing themselves, until the brilliance of their expression turns ridicule into admiration. Their mythic lineage ensures they are never truly alone when faced with scorn. The twins symbolize companionship, dialogue, and the eternal presence of the other self. When one aspect of their being feels the sting of ridicule, the other rises with compassion and strength. This inner dialogue fortifies them against isolation, making them resilient even in the harshest storms. The bond between their dual selves is indestructible, and it serves as a reminder that they always carry within them the balance that the world cannot break. Ridicule tries to divide, but Gemini was born to unite. In the greater astrological order, Gemini represents the messenger who carries divine truths across realms. When ridicule descends, it is a shadow attempting to silence the message. Yet a true messenger cannot be silenced, because their voice does not belong solely to them. It is carried by Mercury's wings, lifted by the breath of the cosmos itself. Every attempt to mock them only sharpens their voice until it rings clearer, stronger, and more necessary. Gemini becomes the very embodiment of resilience in expression, proof that the human spirit cannot be reduced by derision when it is aligned with the eternal currents of the universe. Ridicule becomes a passing wind compared to the hurricane of their spirit. It may stir the surface for a moment, but Gemini holds the skies within, infinite and untouchable. The laughter aimed at them fades quickly, but their adaptability ensures they remain, always moving, always rising, always reminding the world that no force of scorn can chain the air. No shadow of ridicule can cover the stars. They stand as testimony to the power of transformation, the courage of duality, and the immortality of the voice that refuses to be silenced. In them lives the eternal truth that to mock the messenger is to strengthen the message, and to ridicule Gemini is to awaken the unstoppable flight of their destiny.